مرحبا فيكم في الجزء الثالث من مقابلات فظيعة مع السيكوباتيين. اخترت بعض الحديث من مقابلات متنوعة لقاتلين متسلسلين أقل واحد فيهم قتل فوق 7 أشخاص. قبل أن نبدأ ضعوا لايك سبسكرايب، وإذا انتهيتوا شاركوا أفكاركم معنا في التعليق أو اقتراحات ونبدأ مع بعض. جون وين جيسي في هذه المقابلة قالوا له نفذ ربطتك اللي كنت تسويها على أعناق ضحاياك أثناء قتلهم، وعطوه خيط ونفذها تماما مثل ربطة الحبال اللي لقيوها في مسرح الجريمة وعلى ضحايا.
He was simply discussing knots in general. Catch his sense of humor.
Shoelaces, huh? You're in trouble now.
Yeah, right.
Aren't you afraid sitting that close to me? What the hell? Oh, this is too long. You don't need it this long. Okay. I had a rosary, which I carried in my pocket. I've always carried a rosary. It was my communion rosary. They said, well, what kind of a knot do you use? I said, what do you mean knot? When I tie things up? I says, depending on what I'm using it for, I said, the only thing I ever learned from Boy Scouts is a tourniquet knot. He said, well, show us what that is. So I took, at that time, and again, it's together, but in order to demonstrate it here, I took the rosary and I said, well, here, you put it around. This is hard trying to do this. Why don't you put your hand out? Okay, here. What I told him, I said, here, all you do is you wrap it around, you put one knot in it. And I said, then you put a second knot in it. Okay? Mm-hmm. I said, then you take a stick and stick it in here, and you just turn this. And I said, it causes a tourniquet. I said, that's the only knot I ever learned.
Precisely the kind of knot found on the ropes wrapped around the necks of the victims found under the house on Summerdale.
وهنا قارنوا بينه وبين جيفري دامر. جيفري قتل 15 شاب وهو قتل 33 شاب. اسمعوا جوابه.
You've heard the experts say it about Jeffrey Dahmer. Gacy dislikes the comparison.
What do I think of Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't know the man personally, but I'll tell you this. That's a good example as to why insanity doesn't belong in a courtroom. Because if Jeffrey Dahmer doesn't meet the requirements for insanity, then I'd hate like hell to run into the guy that does.
Do you feel
Beyond that, I have no comment on Jeffrey Dahmer because I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer. And I would not, whether it's Berkowitz, whether it's Bundy, whether it's Williams, Wayne Williams down in Atlanta, or any of the others, or Charlie Manson. See, I don't comment about other cases for the simple fact is that I wasn't there.
Do you feel somewhat of a kinship with some of these people?
No, God, I hate that when they put me in the same club with them.
That's precisely the club that John Gacy belongs in.
جوزيف كالينيجر قاتل متسلسل يعاني من هلاوس سمعية وبصرية، وأظن المقابلة كانت من المصحة.
Meet Joe Callinger, currently serving a life sentence for sex-related murder here at the State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, just outside Scranton, Pennsylvania.
I'm a patient person, got a good listening ear, and try to help people.
You're a patient with a good ear, and you try to help people.
Yes.
When you're not trying to murder them.
Yes.
When Callinger's reign of terror ended, 3 were dead, including his 14-year-old son.
You murdered your own son?
Yes, I did.
Why did you do that?
He was a sacrifice. I was to murder 3 million people on planet Earth. And he was a sacrifice to see if I could murder one of my own. At the end of murdering all the people on Earth, I was going to murder my own family and then take my own life and become God.
What do you think of the death penalty?
I'm opposed to it.
The state has no right to take your life, but you can murder other people?
I don't think anyone has the right to take a life.
Except you?
When I'm under hallucination, I do.
These voices from God, these hallucinations, do you still experience them?
Yes, I do.
Often?
Often.
Do you ever feel violent?
Yes, I do.
What do you feel like doing?
Killing people.
You still feel like killing people?
Yes.
Describe the feeling that you get when you feel like killing people.
Well, last March 11th, I was hallucinating, and I took a razor blade and I cut a man's throat.
Here in the hospital?
Here in the hospital.
Do you think you'd murder me, Joe?
Yes.
That's gruesome, Joe. That's horrible.
Yes, it is.
And you don't blame me if I say I hope you never get out of this place.
I hope I never do either.
Amen.
آيسمان أو ريتشارد كوكلنسكي هو قاتل مأجور أمريكي، ومنحته السلطات لقب رجل الثلج بعد أن اكتشفوا أنه قام بتجميد جثة أحد ضحاياه في محاولة لإخفاء وقت الوفاة.
As Kuklinski grew older, he swore that no one would ever again treat him with disrespect. He held unreasonable grudges and would sometimes stalk his victims for days.
How much would somebody have to humiliate you before you'd become obsessed with killing them?
It would be the degree he humiliated me. If it were not much, and it would be the time. It would be how my attitude was. If I was jumpy or edgy, it wouldn't take much. If I was passive, then he might get away with it. But no one really knew. I took a guy down one time, just following him around. He was with a few people. Now, as they went to the bar, this person decided he couldn't wait to get inside to urinate. He never did. Everybody else went in. He stayed outside to urinate. He urinated. He went comfortably anyway. He had an empty bladder. But I actually strangled him.
From behind, I assume.
Definitely. I actually did it in a way that's maybe this is original, and maybe not, I don't know. But I put the rope around his neck, twisted it, and threw him over my shoulder, and held him there. So actually, I was the tree hanging him.
Yeah.
And he eventually just stopped kicking. And I let it loose at one end. He slid down to the ground. I put him over by the garbage and left.
Had you brought a length of rope with you?
No, actually, this guy, these people had around and back at a bar. They must have lived upstairs. There was an apartment upstairs, and they had one of these things where they had rope across this thing, and they had a couple of these lines going across this way. And that's what I took.
Talking about clothesline?
Yeah.
Now, what had this guy done to you?
I didn't like him. He just made me mad, some reason or other. For me to track him and wait for him, I was mad at him for something.
Do you remember what his body did while you were hanging him?
Yeah, I was twitching and kicking.
How long did it take?
I don't really know. Didn't look at my watch, so I really couldn't say. You know, I kept him a while. Even after he stopped, I kept him a while just to make sure.
Did you have another weapon with you?
Yes.
But this was quieter.
It was more personal. I actually felt him die.
Did you like that?
Didn't do anything. But I mean, I did feel him die. I felt him go limp.
And you got your relief?
Yes. Basically, I didn't have any more pressure, no more tension. It was almost like a cure-all. Unbelievable.
Kuklinski's early years were plagued with a hair-trigger temper. If he had a problem, he solved it the only way he knew how. In his 20s, Kuklinski's proficiency at remorseless killing caught the attention of the mafia, and he graduated from the impulse murders of his youth to his new career as a contract killer. He tells Dr. Dietz about his first murder for hire.
He gave me a picture of him and a description of what he does and what he generally does and where he goes, places he goes. And so I went to the area where they said he might be, and I saw somebody who looked like him, similar to him. He had a knack for smoking, and they told me he smoked big cigars, Churchill cigars or something. So I pulled up alongside of him. At the time, I was riding a motorcycle. And I just said, Cuban? Are they Cuban? Looks like a good cigar. And he wasn't a happy camper, because he said, fuck you. And when he said, fuck you, he looked my way, and I got a clear shot of his face. It was a picture I had of the man they wanted, and I said, nah, don't fuck me, fuck you. And I just took this weapon out and blew his head off. It just disintegrated his, like you see a pumpkin get hit with a shotgun or something, they just spread out. And that's what happened. And light turned green about the time I shot him, and I left.
Does it give you any response in your guts to see a man's head explode?
It surprised me a lot. A response in my gut. What kind of response do we want? I don't know. I don't have any response.
Most people, when they see horrible things, if they see somebody badly injured, certainly see something that awful, have a visceral reaction. They feel nauseated. They may want to vomit. It makes them very uncomfortable all over real fast. Did you get anything?
No, it's a good thing I didn't have to vomit, because then I would have had real problems on that motorcycle. But I didn't have that problem. I didn't have any sickness, dizziness, or upset stomach or anything like that.
It helped you adapt and cope, not to care.
Definitely. Not to care is much better.
Because it's a weakness to care.
That's right, it is.